Let's take it from the top.
This is the Lowdown Sports Show.
Give me the lowdown.
With Drew.
I just heard your dad might already hate you, and I was like,
Yeah.
what, brother? Oh, man.
And BJ.
Yeah, he could be part of the mascot's entourage and be throwing T-shirts into the crowd.
And it all starts right now.
All right, welcome into another episode of the Lowdown Sports Show. I'm your host, Drew.
I'm BJ.
And we're here to get the lowdown on all things basketball.
Yeah, we are.
We got a good show planned. Episode number 8 of this season. We're talking some college hoops. We got Coach Tripp here for us today. We're talking early season upsets for the men and the women. Players to watch. Coach's Corner happening. Tripp's top 10 list is back for this week. Or this month, I guess I should say. He's a monthly visitor. Playing with it or quit it as well. And that is what is on the agenda for today. College hoops, ladies and gents. And before we dig into that old college hoops, we want to give shouts out to our partners, T-Public, Fanatics, and SeatGeek, and let you know that SeatGeek is a ticket app that takes confusion out of buying tickets. Use code The Lowdown in all caps for $20 off your first order. This show is also presented by StatHead. My man BJ has a stat of the episode for us.
That's right, Drew. And before we get to the stat of the episode, I want to make sure that you follow us on all the socials. You can find them up above my head here if you're watching along on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitch. But you can follow us over on those platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, as well as on Instagram, on X, TikTok, and on Threads. Make sure you find us at _lowdown on all those platforms except for Twitch because, well, somebody meaner than Drew and I wanted our name. So we are just the Lowdown on Twitch at any rate. So our stat of the episode, Drew, we're talking about college basketball this time. And through StatHead, I was just looking and it gave me a random player and I wanted to see what they did in college. So I first had to find a player that actually went to college as opposed to being drafted right out of high school because you can look at both options. Players that came along before the one and done rule came into effect, and players that have been in college since that rule. And our friends at StatHead said, "Why don't you check out what Lamar Odom did? He spent a season in the college ranks. He didn't have to. He was drafted 4th overall in '99, and he could have gone right out of high school, but he spent a season at the University of Rhode Island of the Atlantic 10. 32 games, he was a starter in all of those games, and he was a 48% field goal shooter as he averaged 17.5 points per contest, almost 10 rebounds a game, and 4 assists a contest, and also threw in a block and a half per contest and almost 1 full steal a game. He was red hot, and I can understand why. He was one of the top 5 players picked in that year's draft. So you can look at what, not just some of your favorite NBA players were able to do in the college ranks. You can also look at what the WNBA players had in their collegiate time as well. Stat had all kinds of tools at your disposal. Why don't you go over there and get yourself a subscription? The fine folks at Sports Reference and StatHead do a fantastic job with everything that you could want to possibly know.
There you go. There's our stat of the episode presented by Mr. BJ. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Another stat of the episode. And as we mentioned, we said we got Coach Tripp in the house.
There he is.
For some college basketball. Tripp, how you doing, my man?
Good afternoon, Drew, BJ. Man, I am doing fantastic. College basketball season is rolling, men's and women's. Already some intrigue, excitement, upsets, fantastic games. Tons to talk about and excited to be here with you guys. Thank you all for having me for sure.
Absolutely. And there's we've already had a lot of great games, Drew. I know that you and I and Coach Tripp were talking about them here in the last couple of weeks, but Man, I mean, you talk about this being the perfect time for you to come on. We're about to have one of the best times to be a college hoops fan with all the in-season tournaments going on next week.
Oh, absolutely. These tournaments are fantastic, and the teams that they pair against each other, you would think would be something that you wouldn't see until either a conference tournament or possibly the NCAA tournament. And boy, it is a great time to be a college basketball fan, and that's one of the things that's so great about this sport is they start with these tournaments, and you get some really exciting games right off the bat to feed your need for college basketball.
Which matchup next week are you looking forward to the most before we kind of talk about what has already happened? We want to give a little look ahead, I think, at least.
Well, I've really been focusing on what's happened this first thing, so I haven't looked too much yet because I'll tell you, I got so wrapped up, obviously, in some of these early season upsets, but then I got super invested the other night in Kansas and Kentucky. And so so far, I've kind of been living sort of in the moment. So I really haven't looked too far ahead. I've been just enjoying, what's happening right now. And there's a ton of stuff. I mean, from opening night, boom. I mean, the fireworks started going, both men's and women's, with some of these upsets. So I haven't even really looked at the upcoming stuff.
That's perfectly okay. I thought I'd ask while we were talking about it.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of those upsets, man, Trip, a lot of big-time powers went down early. LSU on the women's side went down. We've seen Duke go down. We have seen a number of teams go down early that you won't expect in the top rankings of things. Michigan State doing their thing of losing those important games already. Look at them go, Tom.
I know.
Already.
That Michigan State, man, that really, you're looking at, where they're sitting now, really affected where I wanted to put them in when we get to the top 10 rankings and where I could put them. So, man, that early season stuff is what makes it so great, but it can also be frustrating as a fan sometimes, for sure.
And when Michigan State has won the Big Ten or been competitive in the Big Ten, nobody as we get closer to March is going to remember, remember James Madison taking them down the first night of the year? That's the funny thing about this sport is that we get all these great upsets because it is such a sport that can be, driven by parity at times. But then when it comes to, who should make the tournament and everything like that, it's almost like what happened early in the year gets thrown out for some reason.
Well, a couple of things too. They've now lost 2. I think they're sitting at 1 and 2.
Yep.
But to your point, yes, it won't necessarily negatively affect Michigan State. But what it can really do is particularly if Michigan State turns it around and goes back to their perennial powerhouse, boy, what a quality win that's going to look on the resume of James Madison. So,
absolutely.
So on one side, it could not really be that big of a deal for Michigan State, but it could be a huge factor for James Madison.
Right. No, and even with those couple of losses for Michigan State, they're still in this top 25 poll as well. So we'll see how many losses it takes for them to get kicked out of it. How much belief do they have in these Spartans? Maybe too much.
I think it would take probably a good 3 or 4 losses in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the year before they'd even sniff the outside of the top 25, if I had to guess. Coach, any thoughts on that?
As these rankings come out, kind of every week, if they lose another one before the next ranking comes out, I got to think that they've got to be out. There's no way they can be, 1 and 3 or 2 and 3 and still be in it with, some of these quality teams behind them. So I think that the fact that they're even in it is really more of a nod to what they've done historically, and it should not be that way. I was going through my top 10 and then I had to redo it because I had to try and think about let's not worry about the preseason. Let's try to focus on the quality of play, the quality of opponent, which you can't always control, but that kind of stuff. So I'm shocked that they're ranked as high as they are, and I love Michigan State, and Tom Izzo I think is a fantastic coach, but right now they're struggling, and to BJ's point, it really doesn't. If they're not ranked right now, that's okay as long as they can right the ship and be ready for, conference play and to get in the tournament that way.
The way you evaluate teams and how you're doing the top 10, he needs to be an Indy, Drew. I'm telling you right now, he needs to be helping these people that always seemingly get it wrong. make the decisions on what happens with the tournament.
Well, when you look at my bracket, you think I always get the bracket wrong as far as wins and losses. So
hey, it's a loser's bet anyway. That's what it is.
Yeah, Trip, we talking about these number of upsets. Where do we want to start off with these? There was a number of them that we've already highlighted. Maybe you start off with that number one. So let's start off with the first thing, the number one seed that got taken down, LSU losing to Colorado in the fashion they did in that opener. What's that say about this? What was supposed to be a newly powerhouse LSU, adding Haley Van Lith as well, coming off a championship?
Yeah, a couple of things. First thing is boy, what an opening night. And as it turns out, there was three big upsets on opening night, two on the women's side, one on the men's side. But this wasn't something that came down to both teams played really, really well and it was a missed shot at the end or come down in a 3-point shot, deep downtown to win it. And man, this was a beatdown. This was a 92-78 beat down by Colorado. If you watch that game, some of the coaching clothing was really pretty interesting.
As it always is.
But no, I think look, LSU, I think they're going to be fine. They're experienced, they're well coached. But boy, I think this was a wake up call. I think maybe a little bit of not quite being as focused as you should have. And look, fair or not, that falls on the coach. But I think those players maybe read a little bit too much or believed some of that hype, and they got a reality check. They're 3-1, so they lost that first one and have won 3 straight. Kind of have righted the ship so far. But I think probably maybe down the road in hindsight, this might be something that the coach will look back on and say, man, this actually didn't want to lose, but I'm glad it happened early because I was able to get their attention. We were able to fix some things and go on and potentially go win this thing. But boy, a very shocking loss. Not just the loss, but the way that they lost, the magnitude of the defeat was really surprising. So I think down the road, it's just to BJ's point earlier. Nobody's going to remember this in March. As they're going in to make these brackets start in the tournament. But right now, boy, it's something that the good thing for them that does make some people not think about it as much is all the other upsets. So people have, so maybe some of this will get lost. But boy, when you're the number one seed and you're kicking off, you're the flagship of NCAA women's basketball on opening night. Certainly not the way fans nor the NCAA women's committee would have wanted that to start, but I actually think it's really good for college basketball.
Yeah, especially because wasn't it just last year that LSU's only loss, if I'm not mistaken, was to South Carolina? They only had one loss on their way to the title last year.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so they already starting off with, on opening night the same number they had all of last year. That was truly the crazy thing. And you also had kind of predicted an upset that did come to fruition. You mentioned it on the last time that you were here with us and gave us this team and said you need to watch out for them. Sure enough, they proved you right and validated you, Coach.
Oh yeah,
man. I was, I didn't know how quickly they would all come together, but we talked about the USC women last time. Really, a team to watch for. They on opening night they upset number 7 Ohio State 83-74, a 9-point win there, and really Juju Watkins coming in. She is the real deal.
She's dynamic.
They're tearing it up. Not just that game, and they're sitting at 3-0, sitting ranked number 21, I believe. And I think they're going to be able to. Really they'll move up in the rankings. And I think, I don't know that they're ready to go win this thing yet, maybe, but a year away, 2 years away, depending, on her development. But this is definitely a team not to go to sleep on. And I was really excited to see how well she played in that opening game, but really how well she's been playing. She is, obviously we talked last time about all the accolades, things she had done. So she was not going to be out of her element or intimidated. This basketball is in her blood. She's made for this, and good for her for seizing that opportunity early anyway.
Oh yeah. And Trip, I saw a graphic the other day. It was about her recent game where she got, I think it was 35 points. It was up there in a graphic with Lisa Leslie and I believe Cheryl Miller. She had 38 as a player at USC, and Lisa had like 33 or 34, somewhere in that lower 30 range, and Juju had 35. So, I mean, up there with some of the greats in
some of the greatest all time
history, just putting up points. And I mean, as a young freshman, I mean,
a true freshman at that. Yeah,
very true. I mean, as true as it gets, man. I mean,
first collegiate game and already kind of wowing the crowds. You can't talk about anybody who you think more green in terms of experience coming in, but she was up for the moment.
Averages right now, BJ Tripp, 28 points, 3 assists, 7 boards, just short of 3 steals.
Man, that's going to get you a sheesh.
He's going to be tearing it up all season long, man. When does USC face somebody that's going to give Juju some problems? Let's see. Looking on down here, just a quick try and peek at maybe UCLA. And they take on them. I think that's a couple of weeks from now. Or no, that's next month. That's New Year's Eve, as a matter of fact. Yeah. So
first conference game, I would imagine, right?
But we'll see. I mean, she's got a good pace so far, and I mean, we'll see once she gets to playing these other dynamic teams, how they scheme and play against her, and let's see what other coaches maybe along the way that we don't expect on their calendar to play Juju a little differently. But she may just be one of those players you just can't flat out stop.
Well, and the thing I was going to bring up, man. So far, and again, it's early, 3 games in, but. Right. If you see her on the schedule or see USC on the schedule, that's got to be something where you've got to maybe change up how you defend, change up how you.
That's the game plan.
Scheme. Yeah, you really have to. It can't be just your normal. This is what we do. You've got to find some way to slow her down, get the ball out of her hands, and
really capitalize when she's off the court too.
Yes. So. Man, some other upsets. North Carolina State upsets number 2 UConn. UConn sitting at 1-1 now. They lost 92-81, and North Carolina State now sitting at 3-0. So that's number 1, number 7, and number 2 going down on the women's side.
Duke went down.
Yeah. What's that?
Duke went down, lost to old Caleb Love again, your former Tar Heel.
On the men's side, they did. And I was going to talk about that too. To their credit, they came and I considered this as I was doing my top 10 ranking, that they came back and righted the ship. And for some of these teams early, it's frustrating because you may not get a bunch of games right away, so you may be sitting with that loss. But they're sitting at 2-1. After they got upset by Arizona, who's really, really good as it turns out.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we mentioned the Michigan State, but they're sitting at 1-2. An interesting one was on the men's side, Penn upsetting number 21 Villanova, and that was 70-60, and that was just the other night. So Villanova sitting at 2-1, Penn sitting at 3-1.
Yeah. And that's rare for Philadelphia area basketball. You just don't see U of Penn or any of the other Big 5 schools take down Villanova. It's a very rare accomplishment.
Yeah, I mean, nobody takes down Villanova, at times.
Yeah, especially the Palestra.
Right. So, and then another one, UC Irvine upset USC.
I was just about to say that. Just scroll to it. UC Irvine 76.
On the men's side, a 10-point win, again, as we've mentioned several times already, if you're a fan of these, it's not time to jump off that bandwagon or anything like that. It's a very long season, and a lot of these, particularly these teams that are opening up in these tournaments, you get a lot of basketball in a short amount of time. So your growth rate as far as experience and stuff like that is really quick, and that's really what these tournaments are for, is to get you a lot of games in a short amount of time. Particularly, you can integrate some of your transfers or your new guys with the core of your team and figure out what do you have, and they can figure out how to play together. So But as a casual fan, that none of these are actually my team, man, I love seeing these upsets. It really makes things exciting, and it's really neat to see it happening both on the men's and the women's side, and starting from opening night. That's
and that's the thing for UC Irvine. I mean, they've been there, they've done that, and they're not intimidated by going into an environment like USC or like any other Pac-12 school, ranked or not. But for USC, I mean, this is that 10-point margin is kind of misleading. I saw a little bit of the tail end of it on YouTube while we were preparing for the show earlier, and USC had opportunities. They had a chance with a three that would have tied it, and they missed. They get a stop at the other end. They still have another chance, and nearly getting a turnover, and then just a dagger three from the right corner, and then you play the free throw game. So I mean, that may be a little bit misleading. It was a lot closer than a 10-point game, but that's how when you play to foul and give yourself as many opportunities, that's what ends up happening.
Yeah, that foul strategy, I mean, is really brilliant, and when it works, boy, it's great. But when it doesn't, you can, like you said, it can look a little more misleading because you're going to give up some points, and you got to do what you got to do. So,
and right now, there's some games being played tonight. Of course, some big time games. UConn and Maryland. UConn beating down Maryland right now, 65-42. Somebody is on upset alert though. Creighton women are on upset alert. Green Bay leads them 55-46 with 7:26 to play. Wow. So we'll see if that we add that to the list of upsets going on the women's side of things. Some other matchups are going on later. Not sure if we'll see upsets in those matchups. Not likely, but there's some big things going on in the way of upsets. We've already mentioned some other players that. I mean, Juju was going to be a player that I was considering a player to watch in this one for this season, of course, because of how she started out this season so hot scoring the basketball. And I did mention one player's name, and I hope we don't see him again. I'd have to check the schedule. But Caleb Love, of course, I mean, doing what he does, whether he's in Carolina or he's in Zona now. So, still balling out wherever he is and still doing what he does, and still talking the talk too. He's not afraid to do the chat.
No, he's not. He's serious.
But and how does it feel, Trip, to hear him say he's a Tar Heel for life?
Well, I wish he was still a Tar Heel this season. But man, a tremendous player, tremendous player, and gave us a lot that magical year when they went on that run and deep into the tournament. And man, I wish him the best. The idea of how easy it is to transfer and portal and all that's a discussion for another day. But I mean, man, go do your thing, go chase your dream and put yourself in the best situation possible. And man, I got nothing but respect and love for him, man.
Yeah, man. And as we talk about these big games and things, we briefly touched on it, but Kentucky in the Kansas game, Dickinson dropping that 2020 game. I mean, how often does that really happen in college basketball these days? And I mean, it's a rare thing we see in the NBA, but it seems like it's more impressive nowadays because it's so rare in the college game to see the big 2020 game. I believe he had 26 and 21 in that game. So, I mean, Dickinson and
beyond that, I mean, he went 1 for 2, I mean, from 3-point range. I mean, this is a 7'1" guy. He was 10 for 11 from free throws, 8 of 12 from 2-point range. I mean, he did it all. And he was, towards the end, because they were down 14.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Probably the only reason they won.
Yeah. I was going to say, when they started to make their run, I mean, he was virtually unguardable. They had no answer for him. And man, he was definitely impressive. And of course, he would be, if you're a Kansas fan, he would be the reason you argue for the transfer portal. He came over from Michigan. As a career, he's 17.4 points, 8.5 boards, 3 games here in Kansas. He's 22 points per game, 12.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists. I mean, he's definitely, again, it's such a small sample size, but he's certainly started off, justifying the hype that everybody had in him. And in that comeback win, he was dominant. And you kind of mentioned the term earlier, players to watch. I kind of picked at least one player that is started out on fire, one or two, and then two, I think that kind of just looking ahead, maybe kind of like we did with Juju, like some potential upside for them. But he's on that list of player to watch just because of what he did. And to BJ's point, he kind of willed them to that win because it was not looking good for Kansas. I was thinking, here's another upset.
Right.
He did not let that happen.
Who else is on your list?
Yeah, who else?
On the men's side, I've got two of them that are again, we're talking more potential upside. Let's see what happens this season. One is Tucker DeVries, 6'7" forward out of Drake. He is the reigning Missouri Valley Conference Player of the Year. He did lead them to that tournament last year, and they had a first-round loss in Miami. In 2 games this year, he's averaging 28.5 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, and 5 assists. And then compare that to his career. I mean, against 2 games, but his career is 16.3 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, and 2 assists.
Nice,
so
hot start.
Yeah, so he's a hot start, and he showed he could do it last year. Got Drake to the tournament, so he's one I really look forward to be even better for his team this year. And so that is Tucker DeVries out of Drake.
Tucker DeVries. Let's see. Does Drake have any big matchups coming up? Are they playing any top 25? No, I don't see him.
Probably not. But them being in the Missouri Valley, you wouldn't really see them in a big matchup until March, I don't think.
Yeah, so they gotta have a great year, win their conference, and get a bid that way.
He's got a good chance to keep up that pace out there since they're not playing anybody that's really gonna knock them off their good foot.
Yeah. And then my other player is Wade Taylor IV.
Okay.
And he is a 6-foot guard out of he's playing in SEC A&M. He is on the season. They're sitting at 3-0. They went to the he led them last year to the first round of the tournament, the first time since the 2017-2018 season. Again, his 3-game average this year, he's up almost a little over 5 points, 17.3 points versus his career of 12.2, 2.7 rebounds versus 2.3, and then 5 assists over 3.1. And again, we don't need to get too crazy about 2 games, 3 games here or there. But I guess the point is again, like we talked about, he's starting out hot, coming off of a game where they did really well last year. Got to the tournament for the first time since 2017-18. And so I really think those 2 guys, and then obviously Hunter Dickinson, are players to watch this year. 1, obviously well-known, and 2, maybe a little more under the radar, that if you're looking for something new or different, you can kind of look at those.
Fun fact, I used to board out for the broadcaster for the Texas A&M Aggies.
Oh, really?
I just talked to him actually like a few days ago. Yes.
That's awesome.
Shout out Andrew Monaco, by the way. Yeah, Mr. Wade Taylor. Okay. All right. I think those were all yours, right, Trip?
Yes.
Okay. I think I went through all mine I was going to touch. BJ, you got one? Yeah.
I do have one. And this is going to be interesting for this team. They've got a really good strength of schedule here early on. Of course, it's just a couple games in, but first year in a new conference. What's the kind of the peak for Central Florida? I think Jalen Sellers is going to be a guy to watch out for. He's a junior, 6'4", 196-pound guard from Columbus, Georgia for Central Florida. But already here early on in the season, in just a few games, I think they're playing right now, in fact. So this may not be completely up to date, but last check, he was right up there, averaging over 22.5 points per contest, 13 tonight so far, as they are up big on Cal State Fullerton. But that's a team that they've not really been seeing a whole lot of success in the American. Now they're in the in the Big 12, which seems like it would be even more of a step up if you were not having the kind of success that you were wanting to have. But as far as they'll go is how far he'll go, or however he goes is about how they'll go. You know what I'm trying to say. It's been a long
Gotcha.
time.
Most definitely. I think that's all of our players on this side of things. I think we got through most of these upsets, but still, Coach, keep an eye on this one. Creighton's still on upset alert. 4.5 left in the game. Green Bay leads 57-51.
Oh.
So it's getting a little closer, but not a whole lot of time left. Do what?
I was to say that game being broadcast, we could see if we could find the.
It's on the ACC network, I think.
Oh, okay.
Or yeah, ACC network. I think. No,
Okay.
No, it's not being broadcast. That's
Oh.
game above it. I'm not sure who's got that game.
Oh,
I don't think it is.
No big deal either way. I guess it might be on like a FS2, but I don't see it. So
yeah, maybe Creighton's broadcasting it on their own.
Very possible. Yeah.
No clue, but I think that's going to do it for our early season upsets and some players to watch. That means it's time to go ahead and slide into Coach's Corner. Woo. Coach Tripp in here with some Coach's Corner, baby.
All right, gentlemen. And again, you may have discussed this on when I wasn't on. It is college related specific. That's why I want to bring it up, but it's very iconic. On November 1st, at the age of 83 years old, Coach Bobby Knight passed away. And so I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Bobby Knight, his background. And look, we'll address some of the controversies. You know, he's certainly a world-class X's and O's guy, but had some issues on and off the court as well. But I kind of wanted to go through a little bit of his resume since we lost one of the great ones and kind of talk about that. So he was 83 years old. In 1965, he became the youngest D1 coach, at least at that time. That may have changed since, when he coached at Army at the age of 24. So that was his first gig. Obviously, he made his career at all those years at Indiana, although he did also have a stint at Texas Tech, if you remember that, late towards his career.
I do remember that. I was a Tech fan because of Bob Knight, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah. And then he put them back on the map basketball-wise. They were kind of an afterthought. So at Indiana, he accumulated 661 wins. His overall record total, everywhere he coached, 902 and 371. He made the NCAA tournament 24 appearances in 29 years of coaching. He won 20 or more games 29 times. In 1984, he coached the U.S. Olympic team to a gold medal, which was not also without some controversy, as he kind of cut some NBA players to make room for his players. He has 3 national titles, one in 1976, 81, and 87. The 76 one is significant because it was an undefeated season. They went 32-0, and he beat Michigan 86-68. In 81, he went 26-9 on his way to the title and beat UNC 63-50. And then in 1987, he went 30-4 and beat his good friend Jim Boeheim 74-73.
And if I'm not mistaken,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, if I'm not mistaken, Coach, that Indiana team that won it all is when they were undefeated. That's the last team that's made it through the entire season without a loss on their way to the title.
I think you're correct. I think you're correct. It's such an unbelievable stat. At Army, he was 102 wins and 50 losses. At Indiana, 661 and 242. And then at Texas Tech, this may surprise you, maybe not, since you're obviously a fan because of them, 138 and 82. So, a lot of wins. And I guess I had forgotten how long he was at Texas Tech.
Yeah.
So
I forgot he had that many losses. I knew they had a few, but.
Yeah. So listen, his basketball resume speaks for itself. In January 1st, 2007, while he was at Tech, he passed Dean Smith for, at the time, which was the most wins all time. He's currently sitting on that list at number 6 with 902 total wins. So obviously Krzyzewski and some of those others have surpassed him. But at the time, he was the winningest coach. So look, X's and O's, the guy was phenomenal. He could recruit. He could develop players, obviously win championships. So if that was where the story ends, it would be a great story, but not all that interesting. So where it gets interesting are all the things that maybe take away from the legend of Bobby Knight on the positive side. He had the infamous chair throwing incident in a game in 1985 against Purdue, where he threw a chair onto the court. You can actually, I don't know if you can, but I read something today where they actually have that chair on campus. It's like locked up in a maintenance room, but they still have that chair. In 1997, there was an incident with a player named Neil Reed. And Neil Reed came out and kind of accused Bobby Knight of choking him during practice. But not everybody kind of believed it. It wasn't until in 2000 where video footage of that surfaced. So I guess they taped practice. Somehow that came out. So that got him put on a zero tolerance contract, and he would eventually be fired on September 10th of the year 2000. And the quote was, for an unacceptable pattern of behavior. He had an incident later where he grabbed a 19-year-old freshman by the arm and supposedly cussed him out because the 19-year-old called him Knight rather than Coach Knight. Anyway, a fantastic storybook career record-wise, X's and O's, the 3 national championships, a U.S. Olympic gold medal, but not without some controversies, some issues. But look, love him or hate him. As far as, if you rooted for him or against him, one of the all-time greats in basketball, college basketball history. And look, as far as some of these controversies, obviously the choking incident is quite disturbing, but some of the others are personality flaws, but everybody has them. You can't excuse choking someone, but the throwing of the chair, things like that, that was just him apparently. And I think they came up with this unacceptable zero tolerance thing, but I think as Miles Brand at the time was president, they bear some of that responsibility, because there's no way that was the first time something like that happened. And when you allow something to go on, obviously it's going to probably escalate over time if there's no consequences. So certainly he was in the wrong for some of these controversies that he started or was involved in. But I think Miles Brand, the university, probably owns some accountability as well for not addressing it until there was this massive issue, until it was too late where they could not ignore it. And I think maybe the lesson is, well, he's won these championships, he's winning, he's bringing in talent. We'll let these things go to the side. And I think that's the wrong message. But more to the point is, I wanted to celebrate the brilliant career of Coach Knight, who we lost on November 1st, 83 years old.
Coach, I'm going to ask both of you, do you guys happen to know what my favorite quote from Coach Bobby Knight was?
I have no clue.
I can guess, and I don't know if it's the one, and I may not get this right, but I would guess it's maybe the one of, when they bury me face down so the rest of the world can kiss my ass.
Yes, that is it. Yeah, when I die, may they bury me upside down or something like that, so that everyone who died, I can't remember, but you've got pretty much the gist of it. You got the gist of it for sure. He was a very, I thought he was a very, very good coach. Obviously, like you said, he was not without his warts, and he had, some things that he probably needed to get sorted out as a coach, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And too often, unfortunately, it looked like there was wrong ways of handling things. But I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I don't know if once he retired, and he was doing some analysis as well. I think he worked with ESPN for a couple of years after he retired from Texas Tech. He was not even close to the same kind of fiery spirit that he was as a coach. And you've kind of seen that with Mike Krzyzewski now that he's been retired a few years, Roy Williams and everything like that. I don't know how much of it is just because there's a lot of pressure being put on you if you're a head coach, especially for, I mean, you talk about how much basketball means in the state of Indiana and at the collegiate level in that state. It's one of it got to be one of the toughest jobs in any field or profession is being a head coach, and especially when you have given them success and they're continuing to expect it and want more and more success.
Right. And I would go a step further and say I would be willing to bet that it's even more difficult now with the kind of unlimited access between, social media and the access the regular media has, that there's probably never a moment where, as a big time program that you can just kind of take a deep breath, relax. There's always somebody questioning a decision you made or a player wanting to leave, all kind of stuff. So hopefully, though, these guys can kind of keep their cool and get that figured out. So
absolutely. The legend of Bobby Knight.
A good old Bobby Knight. Boy, oh boy. Man, good coach's corner, coach.
Thank you.
Always coming in clutch with a good coach's corner. I left my door open. Shame on me. Let's take a quick moment to let our people out there know about the things that they can get to show support for the show. They can shop with our partners at TeePublic. First things first, guys, there's a sale going on. It's sale time. You want to head on over to TeePublic and take advantage of the sales right now, ladies and gentlemen. You're looking for a deal that's always there? Well, at TeePublic, they have just that. 25% off on stickers when you buy 4 or more, and they're only $250 when they're not on sale. So go see how much cheaper they are when they're on sale right now, and you still get the discount of 25% off getting those stickers, whether the sale's going on at TeePublic or not. Slide on over to the link in the description and add some stickers to your cart by shopping our merch at TeePublic.
That's right, Drew. And also don't forget to check out our friends over at Fanatics. Black Friday is coming up. They're going to have some great deals in store, I'm sure of that. But right now, as part of a promotional deal that they are doing with NFL Sunday Ticket, you can get 25% off everything site-wide by using the promo code NFLST, as in NFL Sunday Ticket. So NFLST will give you 25% off through the rest of the evening. So you got to hurry. You got to get over there if you're watching live. If you missed it live, you probably aren't going to get that deal specifically, but be sure to head on over to Fanatics, get yourself some cold weather gear. As the weather gets colder, you're going to want to bundle up because, summer is still quite a bit a ways away. And why not rock your favorite team as we get closer and closer to the holiday season? Or maybe you just want to get that special someone something special for the holidays. You got plenty of time to do that, but why risk it going to the mall and paying outrageous retail prices when you can shop at the comfort of your home? You can sit in your, comfortable chair and with your most special cup of cocoa or coffee or whatever in your pajamas and get yourself some fresh new gear and some fresh new gifts over at fanatics.com. Officially licensed everything. And now, Drew, as we come back, I want to also let you know, just like last week, I wasn't planning on this, but I am rocking that World Series gear yet again with this hat from our friends at Fanatics. What's that?
Went and took it.
Went and took it, indeed. Now, I believe, Drew, it's time to see what Coach has in store for us. It's time for Tripp's Top 10.
It's Tripp's Top 10. Woo!
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
The only top 10 poll that matters out there, ladies and gentlemen.
That's what I'm talking about. All right, so when I sat down to do this, it was, for me, very different than when I did the preseason poll, because the preseason one, I was looking at what I thought just, we got an upset.
We have an upset?
Upset alert. Upset alert. 31 seconds remaining. Green Bay leads Creighton 65-53. That's a wrap. Creighton, number 22, Creighton go down.
The upset train rolls on.
Shut it down. Let's go home.
Let's go home.
So when I do a preseason top 10, I'm really looking at what is my thoughts on this team. What do they have, and for the long term of the season, what can they do? Where can they end up? When I did this one, I really tried to look at right now a snapshot of where I think they are based on how they've played, who they've played. Okay, so some of this, and it's nothing too shocking, but some of the decisions I made are, like Gonzaga. I mean, they're 1-2. Do I think they're better than that? Absolutely, but I can't put them in there. So I really tried to focus on this 2 weeks.
I'm so interested to see where you have Duke. I can't wait.
Man, that's
very
interesting.
So here we go. So I will start. I'll start with number 10, and we'll go from 10 to 1. How about that? All right.
Let's do it.
So number 10, I have Florida Atlantic. So they were already kind of in that top 10 range before, and so they're still there. Obviously, they've got some key pieces back from their 35-4 last season semifinal, and they haven't done anything to knock them out of it this season. So they're number 10. Number 9, Creighton. They're sitting at 3-0 this year. They beat Iowa 92-84, and again they've got some guys coming back from a tournament regional final as well. All right. So here's where I struggled a little bit with 7-8, just because these teams I'm going to put on there are good, but and their record is good, 3-0. They just haven't played anybody, which is not necessarily their fault. So I struggled a little bit, but I kept them. So I put Houston at number 8 at 3-0.
Okay.
Now, I think down the road they're better than that, and I think they will prove that with victories. But right now, 3-0 is the best they can get. But the level of competition made it difficult for me to move them up.
I can tell you, there's probably a lot of other teams that are 3-0 that aren't even anywhere close to your top 10. So,
yeah true. Tennessee 3-0. So they had not a big win, but they had a win, a pretty good win by 10. They're 3-0, but again, the quality opponents hadn't been there yet. All right, here we go. Number 6. This is where I have the Duke Blue Devils.
Okay. I was wondering where we were going. I was like, if they're not right here, they're not in his top 10. And
no, they're definitely in. Here's the thing: they got beat, and I was happy as can be, thrilled. But man, they responded by beating Michigan State. Who that's their second loss, and handled them pretty well. Neutral site, I believe, tournament game, but they're number 6. And again, I think that they are going to move up as we go because they're too talented and really too well coached, which we kind of talked about before. Like, who would have thought losing Krzyzewski and this guy coming in? You would have thought there would have been not a talent drop off, but a coaching drop off, and this guy's done fantastic. All right, number 5. I'm finally not taking the bait, not falling for it. So I have Purdue at number 5.
Oh, thank goodness.
So they're 3-0. Obviously, they got that big guy in the middle, 7'4" center. But right now, I'm not going to move them up until they make me by quality wins and showing that they can do it.
Well, Trip, they're going to test you on Monday. They got the Zags on Monday, and they're either going to show you that they're for real or they're what we thought they were. They're
exactly. You're correct. That should be a heck of a ball game.
Mm-hmm.
All right,
I think it'd be good if the Zags come on top as well, because I mean they've done shifted out some talent. No more Drew Timme and company and things like that, and retooling. If they win here, then they show that they can continue on. With Newtown, regenerate. You can believe in these Bulldogs. Like, they haven't won anything yet, unfortunately, but they're still able to get quality wins throughout the season. Give me the Zags in this. I'll tell you. Or excuse me. Yeah. Give me Zags.
Give you the Zags. All right, I like it. Bold pick. I like it.
That's very bold. Yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah. So y'all got Purdue, is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me the Zags upset.
And if they get that win, I'll feel a little more comfortable with them, and maybe move them up. But right now, I would not be shocked if Gonzaga wins. How about that? But I'm picking Purdue.
I think that the early exit for Purdue really kind of helped them come together more as a team, as opposed to just a collection of guys with Zach Edey out there in the middle. So I think that they're going to play better in terms of their teamwork and everything like that. I think that's what's going to be the difference.
Yeah, really, I would assume, to your point, that it's us against the world, chip on the shoulder. Nobody believes in us. Everybody's disrespecting us, and that can certainly help them with that. So,
yeah.
All right, number 4, UConn. Right now, averaging 96 points per game. They're 3-0. Obviously, they great year last year, but again, I'm looking at the 3-0 this year, plus kind of where I had them starting. And then the 96 points per game. Again, hadn't played any world beaters, but so I think that's why they're maybe have them sitting at 4 and not a little bit higher. Marquette. Okay, now we're getting into some that have some bigger name wins. Marquette sitting at 3-0. They're my number 3. They beat number 23 Illinois. The Illini 71-64. So that's kind of the first kind of quality win I've got in here. And so that's why I have Marquette above, UConn, Purdue, because at least so far they've got a more quality win. And so if we're looking at all 3-0 teams, for this snapshot, I'm going to give the nod to somebody with a quality win. Number 2, Arizona, 3-0. Obviously, the big thing they have is they beat Duke 78-73. And then right now, my number 1 team, probably as most people have, is the Kansas Jayhawks, 3-0. Big win against Kentucky. And again, not that Kentucky is great. I think what was more impressive about it was the way they were able to come back. Down 14, they battled back, and the way they won. They inside with the big man, slashing, getting to the bucket. So that is my top 10. Kansas sitting at the number 1 seed.
2 questions for you, Trip.
All right.
First question, what team currently in your top 10 are you afraid, aside from Purdue, because we've already mentioned if they lose, then they'll jump down, but they may not fall all the way out. Who in your top 10 do you believe within the next month when you come back on has a good chance of falling out by the next time you make a top 10 list?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm going to go with, and I don't think this is going to be a popular pick because people think really highly of them. I'm going to go with Tennessee.
Does the schedule strengthen for them here in the next month, you think? Or
let's take a look. I haven't really been super sold on them.
It's one of those things though with Rick Barnes. You always kind of know what you're going to get with a Rick Barnes team.
Right.
They got Illinois on December 9th. They're currently ranked 23rd, but the next matchup, is Syracuse. Then they got your Tar Heels on the 29th. Trip.
29th, yeah.
So they got 2 ranked matchups in the next 4 games. So, very well could. These are kind of bottom top 25 teams. So, if you drop both of those or even one of them, you trickle out of that top 10 potentially there.
Correct.
One of those top 20. Maybe your Heels bounce up in your top 10 with a win like that.
They're undefeated and they get that win. They'd be at least approaching it. I don't know if they'd be in it, but they'd be well along the way.
Have to be a dominant win, maybe, huh?
Yep.
And the second question is, who currently outside of this top 10 has a chance to be in it the next time we have it on? I'll toss some notables out there for you, see if they pique your interest. The Zags, A&M,
Illinois,
Kentucky,
Miami. Yeah, there's a lot of
Texas.
good teams. I'm pretty intrigued with A&M, but I'm going to go with I would go with Gonzaga. Kind of, they got a shot, pretty quick, as we said, to make a statement and get them in there. But again, as we talked last time, I'm a big Mark Few guy, and so all things being equal, I would take his coaching. But A&M I'm intrigued with. Obviously, Miami's been really good, and really Kentucky being a blue blood and stuff, they should get it figured out. They're 2-0. They've got a shot. Let's see who they're playing. If they got anybody. They're in Kansas, obviously, or 2-1. Kansas was obviously a big one.
They got Miami on the 28th, so in 12 days, they got a top 15 matchup, and then they don't see your heels until
16.
Probably just around the next time we talk again.
Yeah. So if they were to convincingly beat Miami and Carolina, certainly, depending on what happens in front of them, if Tennessee or somebody else loses, drops out, for sure.
Oh, we lost Drew. We'll hope that he'll be back here.
Yes, he didn't like that answer.
Oh no, I hope that's not the case. Yeah, there he is. He must have just gotten bumped or.
I hit the wrong button. I did the back button for on our screen.
I thought you didn't like my top 10 list.
Yeah, I was gonna say he was showing you how trash it was without saying anything. No,
I was low key gonna rag on Kentucky briefly of like, hey, they were only up on Commerce by 8 at the half. So I mean, who knows how real they actually are?
Commerce was up by as many as 13, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, in the early going, it was like 16
to 3.
Yeah, 16 something.
Like
yeah.
But yeah, so the thing for me, Coach, is who do you think has the best win so far? Is it Kansas with the win over Kentucky? Do you think Arizona has the best win going into Cameron Indoor, which notoriously is tough for road teams to win at? Is that something that you look at in terms of evaluating, or is it too early to say at this point?
It is something I did not consider that with the 1 and 2 because I had Kansas there already.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say that the Arizona over Duke at Duke is a much bigger win because the Kansas Kentucky, I think, tournament play, it was the neutral site.
Madison Square Garden, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I would say winning at Duke is always difficult. I would say that's the bigger win, which is where I think they were like at maybe going into that, last
12,
like number 12. And, to me, that win was big enough to, throw them up there to number 2 for me.
How soon we forget, even I briefly forgot about this, but James Madison over the Spartans at the Spartans. That's got to be the biggest upset.
Well, I guess it just depends.
Upset, but with Michigan sitting at 1 and 2, Michigan State, although the other one was to Duke. So, but yeah, that's definitely the biggest upset and probably arguably biggest program win for James Madison. I would think.
I guess it really just depends on which team you think is better. Is it Duke that you think is better than Michigan State? Because then if you think that the win at Duke is a more impressive win, that's my argument.
I think this is just impressive because it's a team you didn't expect to come in and make waves like that. Whether, Michigan turns out to be, who we thought they might be this season or not. I mean, they started off as a top-ranked team. So, I mean, the top 5 team getting mollywopped by an unranked team that's just now ranked for the first time in the school's history. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that's pretty big. I was rocking with the Arizona over Duke first, but when I was like, oh shoot, forgot about James Madison over the Spartans here. We can't leave that and underrate that.
And that's definitely got potential. I mean, and that's the thing is as we go along, there will be teams that come along and have just as good, if not better, wins, and it all way. But
yeah, something could change. But just at this point, I mean, we could definitely talk about those two being the better ones this season as far as the atmospheres that you're going to as well. It's different. It might change it a little bit if that was in the flip side on Duke being on the road instead of hosting. You're like, okay, it was a road game for Duke. They're not used to it. That was their first road trip of the year. You expect something like that, and then James Madison, you could make the excuse for them if they hosted a home game. Oh, they had the energy of their home crowd, blah, 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 blah. This was road environment. I mean, going to Michigan State to play this?
Oh, man. What a great time to be a James Madison fan. I mean,
I was just about to say.
Fun fact number 2 of this episode. I photographed the James Madison football team. BJ was at this one, national championship back in 2019. I believe that was that year.
North Dakota State and JMU. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah.
But I was gonna say, do the right thing, NCAA. These teams, they need to be eligible for the postseason, not just the football, but also the basketball team. Because it goes back to, I believe it was Bellarmine last year. I think that if you're a team and you come up a classification and you're good enough to win your conference year 1, why not put them in the tournament? I mean, you saw Fairleigh Dickinson win as a 16 seed, and they weren't even the ones that won the conference. So what's the harm in actually letting the team that earned its way there, regardless of where they are in reclassification process, what's the harm in letting them have the exposure and getting to see their name in the CBS Turner, bug on the bottom of the screen on the March Madness broadcast?
But I don't mind that. I don't mind that at all.
That give a team like a Commerce, if they were to win the Southland Conference, a chance to go.
Bid.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But we can't even do that. We couldn't even go yet. That's where it would bite us in the butt, because even if we win, it's like, oh yeah, nice conference champions, and our heart breaks.
And that's the rule I'm saying they need to change. Because that's also affecting JMU, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe it's just in football, but I can't remember.
Yeah, their petition denied for bowl competition, right? That was football,
Coach, my final question here, at least for tonight, you've got Kansas at 1. That seems to indicate that if the season ended today, you think they're the cream of the crop. Are you sticking with the Jayhawks to win it all at the end of the year, or do you think there's going to be a team that emerges here as we go forward that will, basically kind of put up a fight and be able to take a note?
It's kind of a loaded question, because you're saying Kansas against the field, it's
right? Yeah, Kansas against the field,
well,
and it's early.
It's just a precursor to With It or Quit It. I always load up questions there. No, but okay, so then let me ask you this: would you consider Kansas right now? Obviously, if they're ranked number 1, you think that they would be the team to beat the rest of the way, correct?
I would say yes. They're the team to beat the rest of the way until they're not. If something happens, but as of now, if I was laying money down right now, I would go with Kansas. Although Duke scares me.
They should. Shout out to Duke. Okay, ladies and gents, it is time to slide on into that game that everybody loves around here. We've been playing it for years, almost 3 whole years. It feels like now it's time. As soon as we get around the calendar, it'll probably be at the 3-year anniversary of With It or Quit It. But we're playing that little gamey game, that With It or Quit It, baby. And BJ is around this time to give those questions to Trip. And man, I might jump in and answer some questions. No, Trip, you got it. I don't want to.
I was to say that you might recognize a couple of these, Drew. So I
recycled questions.
No, it's not recycled. Only if you played. Coach Tripp hasn't had these questions before.
Oh, you asking him what I've been asked before?
I might have asked. I might be asking him one that you might have seen before. But hey, it works if you have a new guest to play the game. But it's funny you were talking about anniversary of With It or Quit It, Drew. I'm pretty sure this is tomorrow when we drop this podcast, available for all of our listeners. I think it's our 4-year anniversary of our first episode, if I'm not mistaken, or 3-year anniversary, I should say.
It's almost
season 4, 3 years.
It would be 3.
Okay, yeah. So we'll double check on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the date.
Well, congratulations. That's a long time to do that.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Well, Coach, are you ready to play?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right. We'll start off with question number 1. Coach, I think it was you and me the last time we played With It or Quit It, but we're going to start off with this one here. One of the more popular things, it's funny that they had the NFL Sunday Ticket offering, our friends over at Fanatics did, because I was thinking, Coach, as popular as it is with the NFL, college football needs a red zone style channel too. With it or quit it?
100% with it. Absolutely with it.
I think it's the only fair way to have, the way, because of how many good games there are consistently on a week in, week out basis, where you need to be, trying to watch as many of them as possible, especially when they get into those crunch time moments.
Absolutely. The competition is so much more fun, in my opinion. So you want to watch all these games. You get these vastly contrasting styles, where in the NFL, a lot of times they're more similar. So yeah, you want to be able to jump around and see what's going on with Coach Prime and his bunch. And then you want to, go over and look at, Alabama. I definitely would be 100% with that. That's a great idea.
Yeah. When you had the other, a couple weeks ago, you had LSU and Alabama, Washington, USC or something like that. They were all on at the same time. It's like, how am I supposed to keep up with all of this? I mean, not everybody is in the studio with those guys that get to see it on all the monitors. We got to figure something out. But all right, Coach.
Need like a college football league pass or something.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the good thing about that is for the most part, you don't necessarily have too many options that aren't available that you would need a league pass. But I've definitely, you need one of those like NBA crunch time would be perfect. As games are coming down to the wire or as teams are getting closer to, putting points on the board or big plays. That way you kind of feel like you saw the whole game, even though you only really got to catch glimpses every now and again. But all right, Coach, with it for the first one, we're going to go to question number 2. And Coach Tripp, with us being 1 week away from Thanksgiving, green bean casserole, that's the best side dish to have on your Thanksgiving plate of food. With it or quit it?
Oh man, green bean casserole. I'm gonna quit it. Okay. I like it okay, but I do not think it is the best. I gotta go mashed potatoes, and I gotta go if you get a good cornbread stuffing. Either of those would be my go-tos.
Yeah, and Drew was right there with you. I could see him throwing up the thumbs down in agreement on the quit it answer there. Green bean casserole, not the fan favorite around these parts apparently.
I like green beans, but that casserole is just nasty.
Do you like cream of mushroom soup, Drew?
Nope.
That's why.
That's what threw me off.
Probably. I was to say.
When I was eating it, I was like, okay, this probably isn't terrible, but when it sat in my stomach and it came out the exact same way it went in, we just don't agree with each other. So it's just
there you go.
Well, on this episode of Things We Didn't Need to Know,
that's fun fact number 3 from Drew.
Yeah. Right. And speaking of number 3, well, we're gonna go to question number 3. And Coach, this one I know Drew will recognize this, but it's even more fitting because just coming off of a narrow loss, they were in it. They had a chance to win at the Horn. They lost 66-65, but the A&M Commerce women's basketball team is going to pull off an upset over a P5 in air quotes basketball school after that win or near win at New Mexico last night. Are you with it? Or are you going to quit it?
I mean, I'm a little biased, being a Lion myself, but I'm with it. They are 100%.
I think so too. And they've got opportunities. I mean, Houston's coming to the Fieldhouse, believe it or not. That's later on I think in the month of December, but opportunities at Washington State and a couple other trips to some of those schools that you would consider in the I don't know what they call that automatic qualifying conferences that always seem to get multiple teams in each each tournament. But
right.
I think it's possible too. I think that Coach King has done a fantastic job. They've got a lot of talent. One of the biggest things that was a problem last night is that New Mexico just had a player that was 5 inches taller, and there was just no answers really.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of coach height. Yeah, you can't coach height. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. So 2 with it and a quit it so far. That's not bad. How about we go to question number 4? Coach Tripp, boneless wings are superior to bone-in wings.
I gotta quit that. Quit it. I know, man. I'm a traditional bone-in guy. I like the flats best, but I love wings, but I love them bone-in.
What kind of sauce?
So one of the ones that we really like is the mango manganero, like if you go to Pluckers, and then I like traditional hot, and then I really like the garlic parmesan.
Garlic parmesan is one of my absolute favorites. That's always one that's going to be getting my mouth watering. I like the honey barbecue ones. It really just depends on where you go. Drew,
are you a lemon pepper wing guy?
I am not. I mean, I don't think they're disgusting, but a little too overwhelming.
Yep. Too salty. Yep.
Yeah. They can be done well. They can be done poorly. It's really kind of hit or miss for me. So
can't take the chance.
No, you cannot take the chance.
You Buffalo. You can't go wrong.
There you go. All right, Coach. Ready for the last but not least?
I'm ready.
Question number 5. Here we go. All right, Coach Tripp. You want to talk about a loaded question? I saved this one for last, just especially for you. The Michigan Wolverine football team, they're more likely to win the national championship this year than to actually see any discipline over the sign stealing allegations. With it or quit it.
Well, okay. So they just accepted now the 3-game suspension, but I would say
but that's also from the conference as opposed to the
right.
NCAA.
And I would say I am with that. And for 2 reasons. I really think that they got a shot to win it all. I mean, a legit shot that, and then I also don't think that there's enough outrage. You got half the people that are talking Urban Meyer and that this is ridiculous. This is no story at all. And the other half doing that. And like you said, it's a conference thing. So I'm 100% with it. They're much more likely to win the championship than get any meaningful or actual penalties from at least the NCAA.
And you look at what we just saw not too long ago, what Kansas got. I mean, all that came out about Kansas, and it's a couple game suspension for Bill Self, if I'm not mistaken. The North Carolina scandal that was a couple of years before that. Oklahoma State really feels like they must have done something wrong, or they visited the wrong office in Indianapolis or something, because they got far worse punishment than anybody else that was attributed to anything going on in those scandals. So it's one of those things that I'm right there with you. I don't think the NCAA is really going to do anything about it, honestly.
No, and I think I think they're hoping that it'll sort of just die down and they don't have to deal with it.
They always talk about lack of institutional control. I think the NCAA itself lacks institutional control.
Yes,
they themselves have no control over any of the institutions that they say they are on top of and govern.
The only thing that they have any kind of control over, and they shouldn't as much control as they do, is over players,
and deciding which schools are eligible to compete for a conference championship versus which aren't. Come on, man. Gotta make the right decision. That's with it or quit it, Coach. Fun one.
Right. That was good.
A loaded one at the end there.
There we go. And that's with it or quit it. And that is the episode, ladies and gentlemen. Another successful college basketball episode with Tripp over here. Hope you guys are liking these college basketball features with Tripp here, the second edition here. We're going to be posting his content, of course, every time he comes on through. And let y'all let us know what you think about Coach Tripp's top 10 poll. I mean, you see the big top 25 poll. How is Tripp doing in comparison? Is his list better? I think so. I'm rocking with Tripp's list all day long, baby. Man knows what he's talking about. That's why we get him in here. Big dog Tripp. He loves him some college sports.
Maybe when we get closer and closer, we can get the weekly Tripp top 10 as we get closer to the tournament. I like that idea.
Oh, boy.
I'd definitely be down for that. Definitely.
We'll take the submissions. We'll take them. Slide them our way. We'll let the people know what Tripp's top 10 is week in and week out.
We like it.
Yes, indeed. Guys, make sure you follow us wherever you get your podcasts, and give Tripp a follow over on social media as well. He's always on those college sports and interacting with you. He's happy to have the conversation throughout the course of the day.
Absolutely.
His @ is right there on the screen at NG Triplet over on Twitter, or X, I guess I should say. And go give him a follow and interact with him about some college basketball. And make sure, like I said, follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, wherever you happen to listen to podcasts at. Even on YouTube, we have YouTube as well. And all those social medias we told you about earlier in the episode, right above us if you're watching us over on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook right now. We've got obviously those 3 platforms, X, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads as well. So give us follows on that at @_lowdown. That's THA_lowdown on all those social medias. Make sure you rate and review our podcast out there when you give us a follow over on the podcast platforms. Hit those 5 stars over there on Apple and Spotify. You can do reviews over on Apple. We'll sure take those. We appreciate you. And it'll put us out there with the other podcasts so we can get that added exposure as well. So we will appreciate it. I mean, if we notice any new reviews, heck, we'll read them off on here live for you guys and show our appreciation. Absolutely. Like we mean it, because we do. And make sure you guys, if you're watching over on YouTube, you like the video, hit that subscribe button for us over there, and you can catch, if you missed today's live episode and you don't want to go all the way through the hour, we'll have that clip of Tripp's Top 10 out there and Coach's Corner and things like that. And you can know about them by being subscribed over on YouTube.
And you still got to make sure you're subscribed. And if you want to enter the giveaway, that's still happening.
Right. I'm still in the works on that. We might extend that and give you some more time. That'll definitely help. Fresh New Year giveaway from the Lowdown. How about that?
Absolutely. I like that.
You guys out there. And next episode, we're a couple of weeks away. Next week, we're going to have Thanksgiving. We ain't doing no Lowdown on Thanksgiving. So we'll be taking a break from that and have a fully loaded episode when we come on back post-Thanksgiving break.
Yeah, we're gonna have a stuffed episode just like the stuffed turkey next week when we come back on the 30th. Drew, I know you're traveling, Coach. I don't know if you're traveling, but I want to wish each and everyone that may be traveling safe travels, and maybe when you're on the road, if you happen to be inclined, you can catch up on the Lowdown and go back through the archive as you got a potentially long trip ahead of you.
Indeed. And if you guys are over there and you're subscribed on YouTube, you can check out that bonus content that I just dropped yesterday about those City Edition uniforms. If that interests you at all, go over there on YouTube and check that out for your extra content that you're looking for, ladies and gentlemen. And that's going to be it for another edition of the Lowdown. Anything to add here, BJ, before we head out?
I was going to say that my little there at the end, wishing everyone a happy Thanksgiving and safe travels was what I was going to add. So,
Trip.
Hey, appreciate y'all having me. It was a great time, and I look forward to doing it again. And just like BJ said, y'all have a great Thanksgiving and safe travels to you, Drew.
Always.
Yes, indeed. Appreciate it, guys. Be back in that state of Texas with y'all soon. You guys, everybody out there, have a happy Thanksgiving. We'll see y'all next time on another edition of the Lowdown Sports.